Well, hello again, guys, from here on the Milburn stand steps. Now, I don't really know where to start with that one. A few moments ago, a couple of supporters poured out of the corporate lounges there behind me. Now, they were 10 pints further down the track than I am. I understand why they needed it. But I'll say what I said to them because it sort of crystallised how I feel about that game. I find it hard to criticise Newcastle. The two guys who are very pleasant seem to have a little bit of angst about Nick Pope's contribution later on, about the performance and about the lost points and the lost point at the death there. And I understand that. But I said I find it hard to criticise the team. By the same token, I find it hard to praise them. And I hope you know what I mean by that. I'm almost caught between two stools in my reflection. Can I find reason to say, yes, wow, well done on the back of not playing particularly well, to put yourselves within 5 minutes of the end of 90 with a 1-0 lead, and to have fought and clawed and bit and tackled and headed and cleared and saved your way there. Yeah, I can find reason to say well done, you know, against a team as good as Arsenal as well. For Newcastle to produce a performance and to find a way to come so close to victory, I can find reason to say, yeah, okay, I can get behind that. The means with which they got there, and the general performance, and in a game and a fixture where Newcastle against Arsenal, I thought Newcastle would win this. I thought they would win it for reasons different as to what they came so close to. I thought they would come out and be, as they always have been against Arsenal in recent seasons here, on the front foot. Fourth, not easy to say, on the front. I've had 0 points on the front foot. 4-3-3, 2 wingers, centre forward, setting the intensity, the traps, the pressing from the off, the crowd up for it as well. I thought they would beat Arsenal by being better than them, by bullying them, by intimidating them, by everything that comes with entering the bear pit that is St James's Park on days like this. That's why I thought Newcastle would win. I didn't think they would win playing the way they did. Now, to that end, I was disappointed by the performance. I thought it was quiet from the off. Even when the teams emerged from the tunnel, there wasn't the same noise in the stands. The game started in that way. Arsenal were the better team. I don't think there's any getting away from that. They were the better team with the better players. They controlled the game early on. Newcastle eventually took the lead. Newcastle had a spell around that where they could have added a second. If they had have added that second early in the second half or towards half time when they did play better, would that have then been too much for Arsenal? Perhaps it would have done. And that would have given them something to then carry to victory. As it was in the end, Arsenal were just knocking at the door too many times. They scored from the 11th corner and the 12th corner of the afternoon. We'll go back and we'll pick through the intricacies of it all. But I just want to get back to the point I made at the top there. Because in the end, they didn't play well enough to win. You know, even though the goals have come in the 85th and 96th minute, it was cruel, but it wasn't necessarily unjust. I don't think Arsenal were undeserved winners. I really don't. Mikel Arteta, look, we've got lawn mowers at the training ground. We've got trolleys here post-match outside St James's Park, and I find it hard to criticise guys who are doing the job. I find it hard to criticise Newcastle, but I can for the manner in which they threw it away there in the final 11 minutes. And we'll get to the merit stars, because a lot of the players I'm going to mention, I have a merit stars so clear in my head on 85 minutes. And again, wow, we talk about rewrites as a journalist. That was the ultimate rewrite. It wasn't just, you know, a defeat for Arsenal to a draw. It went to a victory. And again, you know, you're writing as a reporter who was covering both sides there. And my match report on 85 minutes was, you know, Superman has kryptonite, Mikel Arteta and Arsenal have Eddie Howe in Newcastle United and St James's Park. They'd done a job on them again, Newcastle, not in the way I'd expected, you know, to go back to that. I honestly thought Newcastle would come out and play differently and take the game to Arsenal and be better than them and secure that win by the manner in which they have done. The last 3 here, they've won 1-0, 1-0, 2-0. It's been fully deserved. It wouldn't have been fully deserved there. It was the individual performances within Newcastle's 11 and, you know, by extension the substitutes as well. They weren't there. They were there with a few individuals, but did they function as a team? More trolleys. Did it suggest, even if they'd won here today, where I have come away, and I always try to be honest in these reflections. Now, if Newcastle had won, I think there would have been, you know, an outpouring of, wow, that was wonderful. It was a different way to win. Weren't Newcastle fantastic? The season kick-starts from here. That's just sometimes the way. There is a reaction to a result rather than a performance. Even if Newcastle had won, I would like to think I would have stood here and said, I'm not sure about elements of that performance. I'm not sure it's really clicking. I'm not sure you should be relying on Nick Pope making 5 world-class saves and Sven Botman playing out of his skin and Malik Chow as well. It's been absolutely a just means to an end and an avenue to victory? Yes, but I hope you get what I mean by that. When Newcastle have beaten Arsenal and other teams here previously, I've stood here, or when we weren't kicked out as soon as we were, I've stood inside St James's Park and said, yeah, Newcastle were the better team there. That was deserved. I can see the partnerships, the patterns. I can see why they're the better team. They are better than Arsenal, Manchester United, when they've done it to others as well, to Chelsea, to Tottenham. I wouldn't have done that this time. I didn't really like the performance. I didn't like it from the off. Played with the same formation in the end. The team sheet was suggested, that it could have been a 3-5 at the back. They played with the forward Dan Burn at left back in. It worked to an extent, but further forward, up the pitch, it didn't work. Anthony Gordon, is he missing Isak, or is there something not just right within himself right now? Harvey Barnes and Anthony Elanga hadn't done enough to be in the starting 11. There was no quarrel there. Jacob Murphy having been the best of the four wingers. Did he really contribute as he has done out of the quartet of white men so far this season? No, he didn't. Nick Woltemade scores a very good goal, but we've got to talk about Woltemade, and this is what the two guys who came to chat me with, they were adamant that Woltemade should be used in a 10. Okay, I get why you're saying that. He can't be used as a 10 right now. We just can't. Newcastle don't play with a 10, and there is no other number 9, but did it really work? I wrote a piece for the Daily Mail yesterday when I talked about Newcastle 2.0 and how Howe's word is evolved. I don't think it's evolved. I think it's rebuild. And yes, Woltemade has chipped in with 2 goals. The headed winner against Wolves, and came very close to being the scorer of the only goal there with another brilliant header. But are the team functioning around him? If you remove the goal, did he have a good game? I don't think he did. I think he did okay in the circumstance. I wouldn't necessarily blame Nick Woltemade, but he's not sparking off for others. He's not missing chances. He's scored with his only 2 chances really, so far for Newcastle. Yes, there was the one where he hit the ball early in the second half. One of my colleagues suggested that would have been ruled out. There was an offside. I don't know. So, if it had been, he's had 2 chances for Newcastle so far in 4 matches, and he scored 2 goals, and credit to him for that. Again, this isn't a criticism of Woltemade. He just looks like a good player, but the wrong player right now for Newcastle. They really are struggling to make that transition. As Eddie Howe said to us in the week, that will take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but while that is the case, they are leaving behind points, and they're leaving behind performances as well, because I keep on saying this, but that wasn't a great performance there today. So let's track back over it. And they start the game slow. They don't start the game with that energy and that intensity. Is that because Woltemade is there and they just can't do that while he is in need of minutes in his legs? That wasn't there from the off. Arsenal were the better team. They controlled it. Nick Pope has made 2 absolutely fantastic saves before Arsenal then win that penalty in the 15th minute. And we'll talk about that. Was it a penalty? On first viewing, all day long, guys, it's a spot kick. Looks like Jacob Murphy, he's undercooked his back pass. Victor Gyökeres goes round Nick Pope. I then see a replay, and Pope does get something on the ball. Does that make it not a penalty? Well, you're watching it and think, oh no, he's still clattered Gyökeres. But the more you see it and the more you think about it, Pope's action, the touch on the ball comes first. So that, for me, means that everything after that is secondary, is redundant. Pope gets the touch, so yes, even though he catches Gyökeres, he's done what he intended to do. He's won the tackle, so to speak. Now, we're told that, winning the ball doesn't necessarily matter. Yes, but only if what follows after is excessive force, and what happened afterwards wasn't excessive force. So for me, the overturn was right. And that felt like the moment Newcastle needed to sort of snap them from that early slumber. Even still after that, before the moment they do take the lead in the 34th minute, another couple of big saves from Nick Pope before they do go in front. And now, when Newcastle win a corner, I really don't know why supporters cheer with such gusto as they do. It's like, it's like cheering the sound of the kettle boiling, even though there's no tea bags in the house, because Newcastle don't really score from corners, but they did this one. It was really well worked, to be fair to them. It was nice to see Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall celebrate with a set-piece coach as well, because I know there's been a lot of narrative, a lot of noise around this. I wouldn't really blame the new set-piece coach so far, because I think it's on the coaching staff as a collective to be better at set-pieces, and also, more so, in fact, the execution, the delivery of those on the field hasn't been good so far. But this one was something different. It's worked short. Tonali to Gordon, back to Tonali. It's a great cross, hangs it up towards Woltemade. Woltemade, does he shove Gabriel? No, he doesn't. Gabriel goes down far too easily. And it's a brilliant flashed header into the bottom corner, all permanent power there. And that sets Newcastle up to defend what they've got. Now, after that, we've got a couple of half chances. That Woltemade one which hits the bar early in the second half, but we ever really convinced they were going to go and score again or work a really brilliant opening. No, I wasn't really, and that comes back to everything I've said previously about functionality. And it always felt as if the more that second half went on, they were going to have to hold on, and they were holding on, and that was thanks to Nick Pope, to Sven Botman, to Malik Chow. Sven Botman was fantastic. You know, the debate before the game was the only call Eddie Howe really had to make was whether to keep in Botman or Chow, or to make the call and remove one of them. I would have preferred it, I said this before the game, if he'd made that call and kept the back four and not put Dan Burn at left back. I still don't like Dan Burn at left back, even though he's done okay. I thought it was unnecessary to face Dan Burn up with Bukayo Saka, and Saka got away countless times there in the first half, but nonetheless they've found a way between them to keep Arsenal at bay. You know, Tonali and Joe Linton were good in that regard. I didn't like Bruno Guimaraes' performance today. I've spoken about this before, you know, just when it needed him on that occasion there to put that superhero's cape on. I thought Guimaraes was anonymous on the whole today. I thought it was a concerning performance from the captain. But they found a way to put themselves within, like I said, 85 minutes. They're still leading 1-0. They've been unsettled a little bit by the removal of Tino Livramento. We need more news on his knee injury, but it didn't look good. Howe said it was distressing to see him come off. By then, Jamal Lascelles has come on and he's slotted in, to be fair to him. He's won header, he's made a couple of clearances, but you can just tell there's an edginess creeping in. Newcastle have just lost a little bit of balance. There's a couple more subs there. Alanga's on, Usula's on, Barnes is on as well. It's just starting to feel as if Arsenal are coming back into it. Not that they were ever out of it really, but that equaliser just feels increasingly there's an air of inevitability about it. And it comes from a short corner. Declan Rice eventually crosses, and Sven Botman hasn't lost a header all afternoon. It's Mikel Arteta. It's Miguel Mourinho. Who is Mikel Arteta? It's Mikel Mourinho who flashes it in. Now Newcastle have then got a point, and I think they've got to preserve that point. So what then happens with Nick Pope when he tries to play the quick kick downfield? It's just, yeah, the two guys who come up to talk to me, that was what they wanted to talk about, and I see there's a lot of coverage around it online now. I'll say what I said to them. I find it hard to criticise them because without Nick Pope, Newcastle by that point are 4 or 5-1 down. I really believe that, so I find it hard to criticise them. On the back of that, yes, it does lead to the corner, but they've still got a corner to defend. So Declan Rice, it's not Declan Rice, it's Martin Odegaard delivers. I wrote Declan Rice in my match report actually, yeah. Not good for journalists these late rewrites. Martin Odegaard it is, who loads it in. And William Saliba's clever. William Saliba acts as the blocker on Nick Pope, who can't get near the ball, and Gabriel pins Dan Burn, jumps above him, puts it in, and that's 2-1. And yes, it's cruel on Newcastle. It's another sickener on the back of Liverpool doing similar at the end of August there, but is it massively unjust? No, it's probably not. And yeah, that leaves Newcastle now, not at the point of crisis, because they will get there, but this period of transition, going from where they were to where they need to be, it is going to take longer. There is going to have to be patience. I'm not going to stand here and say, you know, to use that word crisis point, you know, 1 win in 6, not really missing as many chances as I would like them to miss. It is going to need patience, it is going to need understanding, and they will get there. They've got good players, they've got a brilliant defence, you know, as you've seen there for the large part. You know, Malik Chow coming in seems like a very good buy. Sven Botman seemed back to his very best for the best part of 85 minutes there. Going further forward, it's not clicking. They're going to need more from Anthony Gordon. They're going to need Tonali and Joe Linton to break the lines and to contribute. Bruno Guimaraes to turn up. They didn't really there today, so yeah, I am going to give merit stars, and I'm not actually going to change them from what I had on 85 minutes. I'm going to stick with what I had in my head, even though I know the award of the 3 stars you probably won't like. 1 goes to Malik Chow. I thought Chow was excellent there today, not just defensively in terms of winning the ball and winning tackles, reading play, intercepting. You know, he's good on the ball as well. He's clearly a very good ball player. 1 star goes to Malik Chow. 2 goes to Sven Botman, just because I thought Sven Botman was better. I thought he was heroic. There's a challenge there at 1-0 where he recovers to make the block on Declan Rice, rises it back to score, about to put it in the bottom corner there. Botman's recovery was brilliant, and I think everything around that now says that Sven Botman has got to stay in the team when Newcastle are picking the strongest team. Beyond that, the question is, what does he do with Dan Burn? Because you probably can't play Dan Burn at left back. I don't like Dan Burn at left back. I just think he's one of the best centre-halves in the country right now. It's a real problem Eddie Howe has got. It's a nice problem to have, because are Newcastle better with 4-3-3 as the formation, or given those at the top end of the pitch aren't really doing it right now, does he actually go 3 at the back and find a way to play Burn, Chow and Botman? That's on Eddie Howe, but it's a big call to make. The 2 stars goes to Sven Botman, and the 3 they go to Nick Pope. I know you might not like that, but I come back to the point I made earlier. Without Nick Pope, Newcastle aren't in a position to be holding on to a 1-0 scoreline, you know. So for me, I think you've got to recognise the contribution and the role Pope had in getting them to that point where they could have taken victory. What he does, as stupid it is, but he's been up seconds before that, he's actually played something similar. He's tried an early one with a throw and nearly gets Newcastle in a position to win the game. So it was well intended, badly executed, but I am going to stick to Nick Pope, 3 stars. A couple of other quick moments of controversy to wrap up. There was the late penalty shout and the ball strikes Gabriel's arm. I've seen a penalty, I don't think it is. It bounces up onto his hand. Yes, it's an unnatural position, but because of the deflection under the laws of the game, that's not a penalty. There was also as well something that I thought had to be revisited, was Gabriel's slap in the face of Nick Woltemade, which Woltemade says was a, you know, he did catch him. Woltemade has spoken about it after the game. I can't believe that wasn't revisited, and I would like to see that again. But yeah, it was a typically feisty, controversial, event-laden afternoon. I know you've got Team Europe and Team USA, but you know, this was Bethpage black and white. This is one of the best rivalries in the Premier League right now. It was a thoroughly entertaining afternoon. If I was Newcastle, would I be downhearted on the back of that? Yes, I would, but 1, by the result, and 2, by the functionality in the final third. But I thought there was enough fight there and enough spirit for them to come away and know that this isn't crisis point, you know, it's absolutely not. They've still got everything in front of them to go forward and for this to be a very good season, but they've got to get to work quick. And those players at the top end of the pitch have got to start finding those partnerships and those ways to bounce off each other, because Nick Woltemade, the guys were right to an extent. He isn't looking like a 9, he is playing for too much of the match with his back to goal in those areas. They need Bjorn Visser back super quick. That really is undoing them right now. Anyway guys, I'm going to end it there. I said at the start of this video I didn't know how to reflect, I didn't know where to go. I don't know if I've actually made any sense of that. Please you tell me below the line if I did. You try and clear it up for me in there as well, because that to me was a little bit of a mess, a little bit of a jumble. I'm talking about the match and my post-match video. I can't even say post-match. Right, I'm off now for a beer to try and dissect that and make sense of it, and to start preparing. It comes around quick. I fly to Belgium on Tuesday morning. I'll be speaking to Eddie Howe in Brussels on Tuesday afternoon. In the meantime, please like this video, please interact with it, and I'll see you again there ahead of another huge game in the Champions League against Union Saint-Gilles. Can't even speak now. Good night guys, bye bye.